answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Therefore, although it pains me to do so,
I'm sure it does,
because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government,
right,
and my decades-long record
right,
of cooperating with Congress,
right,
under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
Bing.
Thank you.
Bing. That's it. We knew that was coming. Invoking his Fifth Amendment right under the Constitution. Now, Dr. Fake has the right to use that. I'm not going to deny that he does. He used it more than 70 times today, refusing to answer questions being posed to him in the Senate committee investigating the origins of COVID and what he had to say about it and what he lied about in previous congressional testimony. I want to point something out to you. Here is Dr. Fauci relying upon the U.S. Constitution for his protection, which he's allowed to do so. But he also abused the U.S. Constitution to trample your rights during the COVID lockdown and everything else. To hell with the Constitution at that point. I'm Dr. Science. I can decide what happens and what doesn't. 180-degree turn, correct? I've told you before, the liberals always pull out the C word, Constitution, when they can make it fit their cause and their narrative. And that's what he did today. And today also, there were a lot of kind of funny things. And at the same time, this is very serious business. Oh, and Dr. Fauci's lawyer, who thought he could sit at the table with him, got kicked out of the hearing by Senator Paul. Now, he still had his attorneys in the room, but they were not allowed to sit up front at the table because he was not a witness, and he had been told you cannot do that. He would not move to the back row with the other attorneys. I'm Dr. Fauci's attorney. Don't you know who I am? Oh, we know damn well who you are, and we know who he is. So, I'll tell you right now, we got nothing new from Fauci other than covering his ass. That was it. And we expected that. And again, I will remind you, you're entitled to take the Fifth Amendment. And the fact that you use the Fifth Amendment cannot be used against you in the sense because the Constitution gives you that right. And you cannot, you can imply guilt, but you can't really apply guilt. Imply, but apply. We got a lot to cover, my friends. We're just getting started. You do not want to go anywhere. Welcome to hour number one. Larry Connors USA on this July 29, 2026. And reminding you with Larry Connors USA, you get news, analysis, opinion, and education. And you're going to get education each hour. And in fact, when you leave each hour, you walk away with more information than you have as we begin the hour. And in fact, in the next hour, in 2011, Supreme Court Justice Scalia addressed Congress on the value of the Bill of Rights, basically saying it was just a piece of parchment. What did he mean by that? That will be a very intriguing statement monologue from Justice Scalia in 2011. I urge you to stick around for that. Yeah, for some it might be too much in the weeds, but this is important. involving the Bill of Rights and his view of it. Later in this hour, how the legacy media, they just adored, they loved Fauci. And there's evidence and evidence and evidence. If you're looking for evidence of where they condemned him, even now, I hear crickets. I hear crickets. Do you? That's about it. That'll be coming up in this hour. And before we wrap up this hour, the story behind the story. This date, 1967. Deadly fire on the USS Forrestal, an aircraft carrier. Then Navy pilot John McCain, who later became a senator, was almost killed, and 130-plus sailors were killed. We'll have that story coming up before we wrap up the hour. Now, back to the questioning today to set the stage again. You heard the opening statement by Dr. Fauci and talking already about the contempt of Rand Paul and wanting to personally embarrass you. I would tell him it's not personal, but it really is. It is personal, and it's about him. And he said, you released my diary and my journals without my permission. Well, I'm so sorry. If you hadn't written the material you wrote in those diaries, you wouldn't have anything to worry about. But Dr. Fauci was more concerned about his fame and the recognition he was getting and the praise he was given at a constant basis than you and your family and your health. Make no mistake about it. So let's begin with Senator Rand Paul overseeing the hearing regarding Dr. Fake.
Dr. Fauci, your testimony today is compelled by a lawful subpoena. As you know, it's a crime under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 to knowingly make a material false statement to Congress with a penalty up to 5 years of imprisonment. Understanding that you are under oath, the American people would like to understand your reasoning, your rationale for why you chose to fund the research in Wuhan. What was the reasoning, and are you sorry basically for making the decision? Would you, given another chance, say, well, gosh, circumstances now as I know it, maybe it wasn't a wise thing. Can you explain to the committee why you chose to fund this dangerous research in China?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Yep, he's holding the Constitution close to his chest. That is the first of 70 times that he today took the Fifth Amendment. Now, again, you can imply that he's covering up, but you can't really apply that to him because he's entitled to take the Fifth Amendment. I'll tell you how funny it got to an extent, once again, to Dr. Fauci being questioned by Senator Rand Paul.
In the red folder on your table is a copy of Section 192 of Title II of the U.S. Code. Your counsel has been provided a copy as well. That section makes it a crime for a witness appearing under subpoena to refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the question under inquiry. Do you have that in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right.
And again, he has the right to deny and say, I'm not going to answer anything. Here's the dilemma. He has been given a pardon by Biden, but that pardon has expired. Anything he does in front of the committee today or any future time, there's no pardon. And, of course, once you start to answer one question in front of a congressional committee, then you're pretty much obliged to answer all of them. Now, you could make the claim that I can answer some, but if they do not apply to anything where I've been granted this pardon, immunity, so forth. In other words, you have some limits on self-incrimination. I'm not an attorney, but others have told me, basically, must you answer every question? The rule is you must answer every question asked, otherwise you could be held in contempt. But again, you can answer like in a criminal case, which this might well end up being. You cannot pick and choose selectively within the same topic. Once you decide to make an answer in one area, As long as they're still in that area, you must answer it. Senator Hawley tried an approach against Dr. Fauci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color is the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now, shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people.
The words of Missouri Senator Hawley. Now, there will be legal debate over, is he right in what he made a statement on? As far as contempt, I have no doubt Fauci has contempt for the entire Senate hearing. But keep in mind, he had a pardon from Joe Biden for everything up to January, the last day Trump was, I should say, the last day Biden was in office. Hawley suggesting you cannot stand on that past pardon, which was probably done by the auto pen, by the way. Now, that could be a legal challenge down the road, no doubt about it. But reference his attorney. He had attorneys sitting behind him, as you heard Senator Hawley refer to. But then one of them insisted on sitting at the table with Dr. Fake, and Senator Rand Paul called him out.
We'll hold off. But you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table, and we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers. He can advise. His lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him.
Yes.
All right? Yeah. But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not.
No, Senator Rand Paul was not going to allow him to continue to sit there. All right, he continued to sit there. Time to send him out of the room, Senator.
This is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
I love it. I love it. I love the applause. I don't know who all was applauding. Fauci was, and I can guarantee you that he wasn't. Put him in the corner. No, send him out of the room. And then Missouri Senator Hawley came back on an issue which we raised yesterday, where Fauci was trying to get a $1 million reward for something. We discussed this yesterday. What, again, does Fauci have to say about that, Senator Hawley?
But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you?
And he did.
That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, and he's allowed to deny that as well. But we told you yesterday. He got that in Feb 2021 from an Israeli-based Dan David Foundation headquarters at Tel Aviv, honored for, quote, courageously defending science. He had sent letters out to some of his colleagues asking them, will you nominate me for this? Here's what you can say. He basically gave them a template. Sign your name to this and send it in. And he got the $1 million. Now, NHI officials blocked him from accepting cash awards from other university groups that led to agency funding, but they did clear that $1 million Dan David Prize, classifying it as, quote, a bona fide public service award. But he's out there begging, will you write my nomination in so I can get the $1 million? And some of them did. Now, Fauci took the fifth, as I say, 70 times today. Senator Rand Paul had a parting shot at him.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the existence of the pardon. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today.
And in fact, they did what I wanted them to do. Play some of his previous testimony in front of him and say, do you remember this? Do you still stand by it? And he'd have to take the fifth again, which he did. But put his own words back up for everyone to see. He has privately admitted, according to sources, the Wuhan market was not the origin of the virus. And he knew that months before they declared the lockdowns that crippled our society, our nation, and harm you and your family, and maybe cost some of you your jobs. We're not done with it. Coming up numerous times that the legacy media adored, protected Fauci, while condemning you, of course. Plus, the story behind the story today. A deadly fire on a U.S. aircraft carrier, USS Forrestal, totally out of control. 100-plus men killed. The story behind the story. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. Every summer, homeowners make plans, a new grill, a backyard project, a family vacation. But what about the upgrades you could enjoy every single day? Your windows drafty, difficult to open? Your patio entry door has seen better days? Now's the time to make a change. Renewal by Andersen makes replacing windows and doors simple. Beautifully crafted products, professional installation. And right now, save big. Get $1,000 off your patio or entry door and take $400 off each replacement window. And if you schedule your appointment before July 12, get an additional $250 off your entire purchase. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Been snooping on the door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Been snooping on the door. You can wag your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
The single most respected voice in the pandemic. It's Dr. Anthony Fauci.
The man who's become known as America's doctor.
The nation's top infectious disease expert, Anthony Fauci.
You are seen to many as a superhero.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, American hero and New York Yankee fan.
You've done so much for this country in terms of this crisis, so I really appreciate your insight.
Who better to give us answers that we can trust than Dr. Anthony Fauci?
Perfect person to answer our questions today. Joining us now, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, appreciate your candor.
Dr. Fauci, appreciate the candor.
We appreciate your service to this country.
We appreciate your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Greatly appreciate your service to America.
Thank you for your 37 years of service, I believe, to 7 presidents, and thank you for your work over the past year.
The great news is you're sticking around in the Biden administration. We are so grateful to you, Dr. Fauci, for everything you do.
Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you very much for everything that you do.
Thanks so much for the work that you do.
Thank you very much for the reassurance and, as always, for all of your public service.
I'm getting sick.
Thank you for all your guidance this past year, and it's greatly appreciated.
Dr. Fauci, on behalf of all of our viewers here in the U.S. and around the world, thanks very much for doing what you're doing. Thanks very much for joining us. Please thank your entire team as well. We are all grateful.
Get your rest because we need you.
You are one of the busiest scientists in the country right now. It is an honor to have some of your time to help us understand what is going on. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, so we appreciate your time, sir.
We need people to continue to have faith in science. So thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for being straight with us. Thank you for being able to come on. You will always have this show as a platform.
Sir, whenever you can be here, we'll have you. It's always an honor to have time with you. Thanks for being here.
It's good enough for you, sir. It's good enough for me and my family. So thank you, Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, thank you for keeping it straight. Thank you for fighting the good fight.
I am sincerely appreciative that you are not walking away from this post. You make us smarter and safer and better every day. Thank you so much, Dr. Fauci.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Are you sick yet of listening to all of that? What a bunch of slop, also known as CRAP. That was the legacy media fawning all over Dr. Fauci, adoring. Oh, we reward you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done for this country. They should have said, thank you for everything you've done to our country, Dr. Fauci. That was a collage of various voices. I'm sure you recognize some of them. You probably don't follow the leftist media as closely as I do. I understand. I do the dirty work for you. But they were all in there praising him at every step in turn. One of them even saying, you're on our program anytime you want. You can use our platform. And Dr. Fauci in his diary, meanwhile, was writing, I'm the most respected, the #1 name in the world. And all the Hollywood celebrities are also calling me. And he also had after he told you cancel any Thanksgiving dinner plans you might have with family. You cannot gather even in small clusters at your house. The week after that, Dr. Fauci wrote in his diary, just had dinner last night at my house with Jake Tapper and his wife. He just had dinner with them. Which, by the way, did Jake Tapper ever report that? As a news broadcaster being truly ethical, he should have said, I had dinner with Dr. Fauci last night at his house. Oh, no, Larry, that's just a personal little meeting. The hell it is, not when the same guy told you no one should be gathering, even in small gatherings, in their home. Jake Tapper should be strung up on that very point. They're not going to do it because they don't know the meaning of ethical journalism. He did not report on it because he knew how it would blow up in his face. And he thought it would never be brought forward at all. But then when Senator Rand Paul got hold of the Fauci diaries and journals, that was one of the pieces of information inside. And Fauci, as you heard earlier today when they began the testimony, criticized Rand Paul, and how dare you, you've trying to embarrass me. You, sir, you, Dr. Fake, embarrassed our nation, but more than that, you harmed our nation and the American people. Larry O'Connor, not related to Larry Connors, but Larry O'Connor is with Salem Media, Town Hall. Listen to his perspective on Dr. Fake.
January 26, 2020, Fauci writes in his diary, now we know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier. That's January of 2020. I believe that's before anyone even had a case of COVID here that was documented. COVID-19 came to America through two different routes. There was a person who visited China who then came back to America through the greater Washington area. I think it was Kirkland, Washington, in a nursing home where they found some cases there. And then through New York City via Italy. You see, China had cases of COVID-19. They knew exactly what it was. They knew exactly how deadly it was. And instead of shutting their country down and quarantining and keeping people from leaving, they went ahead and allowed people, workers that went and worked in some sort of leather works factory in Italy, go ahead and travel from the Wuhan area to Italy. It got to Italy. Go ahead and read it and research it. The very first major New York Times article that we ever had about this crazy virus was all focused in Italy and about how they didn't have any respirators and how people were dying in the hallways of the hospital. It terrified people here in America. It's what started the entire machine rolling that led us to the lockdown. In January of 2020, the wet market was already off the table as far as any scientific consensus was concerned. They knew that the origin was the Wuhan lab. But if you said that for the next 2 years on social media, well, you were censored, you were silenced, you were kicked off the platform. In some cases, you lost your jobs. Anthony Fauci knew.
He did know. He knew. And he continued to use his power as I am Dr. Science to control our nation, to control you and your family. And it is correct. If you stepped out of line, if you did something wrong, they were going to condemn you. And the legacy media was like a bunch of hound dogs chasing after a fox. They're going to run you to the ground, one way or the other. But, of course, if you are Governor Newsom, you can hold a private dinner in Napa Valley at the French Laundry, a very nice, high, expensive restaurant. I've been there, by the way, and I paid my own bill. It was a lot. Very nice experience, good for one time. But he held a private meeting in Napa Valley when everybody else was locked down. And in St. Louis County, Sam Page, the county executive, locked down every restaurant. And then he traveled across the river into St. Charles County to another restaurant. And the restaurant owner told him, you're not welcome here. You got our colleagues and other friends shut down on the other side of the river. They were trying to make sure you were under control. One of those who also was praising Dr. Fauci for many times was a guy that at one time served as the 23rd commissioner of the FDA, Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He is also part of the Fauci diaries. CNBC Joe Kernan put Dr. Gottlieb on the spot.
How about your buddy, your buddy Fauci that I've asked you about in the past? You've defended him quite a bit. It's tough to take.
Yeah, he didn't expect it. I don't know how he was speaking to his own diary.
Does having a reputation totally in the toilet at 85 years, does that hold him to account for what he was responsible for?
The Tony Fauci I saw in those emails is not the Tony Fauci I knew over the years. I mean, he was a guy who was sober, who was careful about his public appearances and his statements, was always very thoughtful.
Did you figure out the obsession with mainstream media in defending him, and Jake Tapper having multiple dinners and best friends, and what did that come from? And I know people around here that would call Tony Fauci a hero.
Yeah, I can't dissect.
You don't know why
people perceive. I think different people had different emotions around
mask, shutdown, the whole.
Look, it's a difficult time, Joe, as you know very well, and I think people were looking for a voice that they can cling to. Maybe they.
I am science. That's why people don't like me. I mean, that was. You're very guarded and nice.
I was disappointed by the emails, I have to admit.
Well, we'll see what happens on Wednesday. Rand Paul's been right all along.
Now, that was raised yesterday before today's testimony. If you think Dr. Gottlieb was depressed and distressed over the emails in that interview with Joe Kernan, I'm sure today he should be more so. And by the way, Ohio U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno dropped the F-bomb on Fauci inside the hearings today. He basically was raising the question and stated it in this fashion. Who the F do you think you are or were? That was Senator Moreno questioning Dr. Fake on all the pandemic restrictions and lockdowns. Who the F do you think you were? Well, for a nation that we hear from the left doesn't want any kings, he thought he was a king. Everybody has to follow what I lay down. You got to stay 6 to 8 feet away from each other. And there was no scientific background for that. None. Made up out of thin air. We're going to have more on the Dr. Fauci testimony, or lack of, today, coming up in our next hour. But before we move to the next hour, the story behind the story, a deadly fire on U.S. aircraft carrier.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Every summer, homeowners make plans: a new grill, a backyard project, a family vacation. But what about the upgrades you could enjoy every single day? Your windows drafty, difficult to open? Your patio entry door has seen better days? Now's the time to make a change. Renewal by Anderson makes replacing windows and doors simple. Beautifully crafted products, professional installation. And right now, save big. Get $1,000 off your patio or entry door and take $400 off each replacement window. And if you schedule your appointment before July 12, get an additional $250 off your entire purchase. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
There's no place to hide down here. No place to hide down here. Went to the rock, got on my knees. I heard the angels weep for me. No place to hide down here.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
Let's go back now to July 29th, 1967. The time is 13:51 and counting. There, on deck. Somehow a Zuni rocket has been triggered, roaring across the flight deck and hitting an A-4 Skyhawk. A sheet of flame from the A-4's ruptured fuel tank has enveloped the Skyhawk and her immediate neighbors. Behind that curtain of smoke, two 1,000-pound bombs have already dropped from her wings onto the burning deck. Here, almost at mid-screen, we see a crash crew chief moving toward the flames with a Purple K fire extinguisher. His only thought, the trapped pilots in those planes.
Fire on a flight deck. Fire on a flight deck. All hands, man your battle stations. All hands, man your battle stations.
In order to control the fire, the captain orders the Forrestal to slow speed. Back on the flight deck, with precious seconds ticking away, things have started to go wrong. Fire has completely blanketed the stern fire main loop, making its plugs inaccessible, and the next to the last loop aft has developed pump trouble. The only alternative is to haul hoses aft from the forward stations, and this takes time, precious time. 13:52 and 43 seconds. The two main fire parties are now on deck working close to the flames, but so far only one hose is actually operating.
That was the beginning of a disaster on board the USS Forrestal aircraft carrier. This date, 1967. Before that was over, 134 sailors would be dead, 160 plus injured, and the aircraft damage exceeding $72 million based on dollars at that point. And one of those sitting on the flight deck was future U.S. Senator John McCain and future four-star admiral of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. They were among the survivors. Cain wrote in his book, Faith of My Fathers, on that Saturday morning in July, as I sat in the cockpit of my A-4 preparing to take off, a rocket in the fuel tank hit my plane. Later accounts rely on that same statement. But closer investigation identified the Skyhawk struck by that rocket was piloted by Lieutenant Commander White. But again, it exploded and sent debris into the plane piloted by then John McCain. And that was just the beginning of the explosions.
The first Forrestal is in deep trouble. It won't end here. The chain has started. And yet those who have survived it turn around and head back. There are buddies back there, and the chief with the purple K is dead. Fire at sea is the ultimate nightmare for any sailor. You can't run away from it. There's nowhere to go. It's a fight for survival. Your instincts have to be right. Your courage pinned on like a badge. Following the third explosion, the first two fire parties had been virtually wiped out. The fire was now completely out of control. A great ship was on the verge of dying. To save her, other men were going to have to go back on deck, most of them without sufficient training in firefighting techniques.
And that did not help the situation at all, as zebra was sounded throughout the ship. The mast call to quarters. Well, a lot of the officers, I should say the sailors, did not know what quarters they were supposed to go to. And many were not trained to be in firefighting. They were trained in other issues, but they grabbed what they could to try to put it out. That was going to cause issues later on. I'll come back to that in a moment. McCain had said that he did see another pilot on fire and turned to help him, and suddenly a bomb detonated another one. There were some World War II bombs that had been brought and placed on the carrier, which the carrier commander really did not want, but he was ordered to take them aboard. And they were considered possibly more volatile, especially when you got into this situation. All of this happening again, this date, 1967. The Forrestal was facing certain disaster. And as they were trying to get control of it, a lot of the ones they were trying to rely on had already been killed. And those who were rushing forward to help, they were being killed. Or in some cases, blown off the carrier. And in some cases, facing fire or jumping about 200 feet into the Pacific. And not everyone who jumped survived the fall. In the meantime, the fuel and the flames continued.
Down below, fuel was pouring through holes in the flight deck caused by the continuous 1,000-pound bomb explosions. The fire had chased after the fuel, spreading quickly to the O3, O2, and O1 gallery decks and into the after end of Hangar Bay 3. Topside, the only hope was that the explosions would somehow subside. Until they did, no firefighting team could possibly survive on deck. In all, during the fire's first 5 minutes, 9 major explosions would take place on the flight deck. As the first of the injured were brought to safety in a sponsored area, another relief party was already forming up. They knew what they needed most on deck, the foam hoses. For some unknown reason, one or more of the fog foam stations hadn't been initially charged. Some of the firefighters either didn't know that it was necessary to perform certain manual functions on the flight deck and hangar decks to get the foam systems operating, or they were injured or killed before they got to them.
In other words, those trained in fighting these fires were not able to get to the scene with any equipment, or they did, they died on the spot. Now, a lot of that, of course, came out later in the investigation. All of the sound you've been listening to is part of a U.S. Navy documentary about the fire on the Forrestal. There were many heroes that day, but there were many mistakes. So yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
Along the port side, where most of the armed aircraft were parked, things were still out of control. Trapped in close quarters, between a constantly exploding inferno and the edge of the deck, several men had no choice. They went overboard. Some were actually blown over the side. Luckily for the ones who survived the experience, rescue helicopters from the carrier Oriskany and two destroyers had arrived on the scene. As quickly as they could, they swept into the Forrestal's wake to make pickups. Here, on the lower left-hand corner of the flat camera picture, is further evidence of a successful team effort. Notice that a fog nozzle has been correctly brought into play over the heads of the firefighters to protect them as they work. Leadership and on-deck communications were early casualties of the Forrestal fire. Damage control and repair party personnel were often unidentified for long periods of time. As a result, when some of the more inexperienced people did lend a hand, they made several well-intentioned but nearly disastrous mistakes. At one point, close to the island, two water hose teams were working in tandem with a foam hose team. The end result, the water washed away the foam, and the fire continued blazing away.
You cannot use water on a fuel fire. That was the purpose of the foam. But again, these guys were doing what they thought they could at that point. Whether or not they were actually applying water in every case to fuel on fire or other portions, we don't know. We do know another ship came alongside, the USS Mackenzie, the destroyer, pulling men out of the water, and they used their fire hoses, spraying it on top of the carrier. And they no doubt were washing away foam as well. Foam was actually suffocating the flames. Water would wash away the foam. Later, it was said that the commander of the ship had shown an act of magnificent seamanship in keeping his ship afloat, not burning and sinking. But those fires burned for hours. And many of the men who rushed forward, they did not have not only proper training, they didn't have the proper equipment, they didn't have the protective clothing they needed. But they were doing what they thought they needed to do to save others. You cannot even begin to imagine what it's like to be on a flight deck of an aircraft carrier or any boat that is on fire. It's the worst thing that can happen on a ship. You're in the middle of the water, you think that shouldn't be an issue. It is. And, of course, your options are either fight the fire, go down with the ship, and or get off the ship and maybe still drown. Well, at least other Navy ships nearby and helicopters to rescue some of the wounded off the deck of the carrier where it was not involved in all these fires and explosions. There were a lot of conclusions about this, but one of the issues still came down to how weapons were being handled on the U.S. carrier. Here's the conclusion as stated in the U.S. documentary.
The fire on deck would end on the afternoon it began. The fires below would rage on through the night and into the evening of the following day. The obvious lessons to be learned from the Forrestal tragedy are these. Original, in-depth training in firefighting is vastly important, but so is constant retraining. Every man on board should have been familiar with the ship's firefighting gear and its use. Some men never reached their general quarters stations. Others, unsure of alternate exits or ways out, were trapped below and died. Many of the firefighters lacked leadership. The chain of command had to be rebuilt on the spot after the first two firefighting teams were decimated. Only untrained men would spray water across a foam blanket that was doing its job. Only untrained men would hot handle unexploded ordnance or kick it across the deck with their feet. These are things that can't be learned on the spot or after a fire starts. The fact that the men of the Forrestal pulled it off is a tribute to their coolness and courage. But we'll never know how many men were lost because some things were done the wrong way.
No, we don't know that. The investigation did find that safety regulations might have prevented the original rocket from firing, which hit the tank on the Skyhawk, or the F-4, and then started the explosion, a chain reaction. I should have said A4 instead of F4. They had problems on what they call the pig on the bombs. It was a wiring process to make sure the missile was wired to the rocket pod. That was not supposed to be attached until it was actually in place. But they were shortcutting it because they thought, we can do it now and it's a lot easier. No one person was blamed for it. And again, you're talking about men caught in a situation that many were not prepared for. They did not have full and proper training. And the sad part of it is, again, 134 men died, 160 injured, many with severe burns. This date, 1967, the USS Forrestal fire. The story behind the story tomorrow. This month, 1993, the Monarch levee failed, flooding the Chesterfield Valley. I know that story firsthand, as many of you might as well. That's our story behind the story tomorrow. We still have one more hour to come. And reminding you, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And, again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. Onderlaw.com. Wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the existence of the pardon. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today.
That is Senator Rand Paul today speaking directly to Dr. Fauci, as he took the Fifth Amendment, which he is entitled to do. I want to stress that over and over again. It is a constitutional right. You do not have to speak in anything that would incriminate yourself. But I want to re-stress to you, that is not an admission of guilt of any type. You have that right. You can imply that they're suggesting that they are guilty, but you cannot apply that reasoning directly. And Senator Rand Paul promised there will be a contempt vote taken because you did invoke the Fifth Amendment. Now, I know how it will go along party lines, but I don't know how valid it's going to end up being. There are going to be a lot of legal snarls back behind this storyline. But the bottom line is today, Dr. Fake just refused to answer anything. And he began his opening statement chastising Senator Rand Paul, saying, I'm only here because he wants to embarrass me. That's not true. We want answers. And yes, we want to hold you accountable for what happened that you made happen to the nation and our families during COVID and the lockdown, when you had already acknowledged, according to diary entries, that you knew in your own diary that it was right out of the Wuhan lab. I told you before, I have no issue with us understanding weaponization of a virus and then how to combat it, because an enemy could use it against us. But you do not ask a foreign adversary like China to do it for you. But that's exactly what Dr. Fauci was doing. We're going to have more on the Fauci testimony later. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors, USA, July 29, 2026. With Larry Connors, USA, we're here every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. And reminding you, wherever you are, you can hear this program. We have 2 great FM radio signals, but by the FCC restrictions, they're limited as to how far they can reach. And at this time of year, there's a lot of atmospheric distraction. Other stations riding over us, and we probably ride over them at some point. 101.9, 94.1, great FM signals. But the best way to make sure you can stay in touch, get the app for your phone. Download it for free. Go to the app store listed on your phone and search NewsTalkSTL. You'll find the app, download it, and when you open it up, whatever we have on the air at that moment, you'll be listening to, which would right now be, well, thank you for joining us. Larry Connors USA, glad to have you. And, of course, all the other programs we're airing. It is a constant live stream. This is how my daughter in Florida listens. This is how some friends I have in Europe listen, using the app or pulling up the podcast later. A podcast of every program is posted later at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. And reminding you, when we're on the air like we are right now, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. Welcome in. You simply go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook, or Twitter, Larry Connors USA Rumble or Facebook. And with Larry Connors USA, you're always going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. And in particular on that point, Justice Scalia made a testimony before Congress in 2011 regarding the Bill of Rights. You will want to hear what he has to say about that coming up later in this hour. But there's a lot of report going around, and depending on the source, CNN even has on its page right now, it'll probably change by the time you open it up. If you do it right now, it'll probably change. A CNN survey. Americans doubt Trump is paying enough attention to the country's most important problems. They're always trying to deflect. Squirrel, you don't want to pay attention to the real life. Watch for the squirrel. And ironically, the CNN analyst, Harry Enton, was reporting on a poll that CNN took, not regarding Trump if he's paying attention to other problems, but where we stand regarding Iran.
Looking at all the news coverage, you'd be looking at all the polling on President Trump, and you would think that Democrats would be able to take advantage and be dominating Republicans when it comes to who is trusted to handle the Iran war. That, simply put, is not the case at all. I mean, these numbers are quite surprising. Trust Dems or Republicans on Iran. According to CNBC earlier this month, you'd think, okay, that's one poll. The Republicans trusted by 2 points. But then CBS News comes out yesterday, and what do you see? You see the exact same thing. Trump and the Republicans take the cake. They are trusted by 2 points on Iran. Now, one poll is one thing, but you put the two of them together, and you can see that the American people, simply put, are not buying what Democrats are selling on Iran. They still trust Republicans more.
That's Harry Enton on CNN, the very one that today on his page says, Americans are confused and lost. They don't think Trump is paying attention to the most important problems. Well, the most important problem for you will be you and your family. I would agree with that. Family first. But part of family first is making sure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. That's what Trump is doing. And the Democrats have so many fires to put out around them. So they're always looking, where else can we start? And they start them, by the way. Where can we start this brush fire that would draw more attention? Creates some flame, a lot of smoke. And today, Trump made it very clear where we're going with Iran. Not specifically, but he said, we're going to beat the effing S out of them. You could fill in the words. You may not like such coarse language. I don't have an issue regarding this subject. I would have to plead guilty, to be quite honest with you. God knows, and now you know. But Trump said, we're going to beat the effing S out of them. And in the meantime, Saudi Arabia joined U.S. in striking against Iranian proxies in Iraq. And far as the Democrats are involved, in addition to trying to set fires around Trump, trying to distract from their inadequacy, they are self-destructing. I want you to go back and listen to, over the weekend, a Democrat Socialist officer, a Democrat Socialist of America Party officer was being questioned. Do you agree with this? Do you agree? What do you want? And then a congressman's response, it just tells you these guys are clueless.
Abolish the Senate. True. Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them. Yep. Abolish ICE. Absolutely. Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally. As a long-term plan, yep. Defund the Pentagon. Absolutely. Abolish prisons, at least in large part. Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah. Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations. Yeah, absolutely.
Are those positions the Democratic Party should accept in your view?
No, and I think the vast majority of Democrats do not. But of course, we're a big tent party where people have different viewpoints. I think that the mainstream viewpoints are ones of, making sure that everyone has a chance to get on the up escalator of the economy. And secondly, that everyone has a chance, regardless of who you are, where you come from, or the number of letters in your name. There are 29 in mine. Mm-hmm. And so I think those are kind of the big tent kind of priorities of the Democratic Party.
29 letters in his name. He's Illinois Democrat Raja Krishnamurti. I might have mispronounced it, not trying to, but so be it. Maybe I missed a vowel or something here or there. But again, he said, no, that's not the view of our party. And yet it is. That's what the Democrat Socialists are pushing. That's what Mandami is pushing, every one of those. Get rid of the U.S. Supreme Court. Defund the Pentagon. Where the hell would you go with that? And he will not condemn it. He just said, well, that's not really the views of the full party. As I said, they are self-destructing. Give you another example. Michigan Congressman Sheenar regarding ICE.
We must pass a bill in Congress to end qualified immunity. I brought a bill in Congress. There is one right now in U.S. Congress that a qualified immunity for ICE agents must end, and if necessary, ICE must be abolished because the ICE as it operates currently is out of control.
Yeah. So just abolish it. Just abolish it. That's a Michigan Democrat. That is the voice of the party. They will not speak out against the DSA. They just try to walk the line they can. Well, the chair of the Republican National Committee, Joe Gruthers, points out exactly what I just said. Democrats are self-destructing.
What the Democrats just did is they basically told the Iowa voters, we don't care about you. And think what's going on in Iowa right now. There's a competitive governor's race. There's a U.S. Senate race. There's 2 House races. And the Democrats are giving them the middle finger. They don't care about Iowa. They don't care about middle America. I think it's a huge mistake. But again, these Democrats just keep on giving us gifts every single day. That's why I've said, and I've talked with Newt Gingrich, even I had him in my office again this week, talking about how the Democrat Party is in the death spiral because of the radical leftists that are running it with no agenda. And they just keep on making some of these decisions, whether it's Troy Jackson or you're dumping Iowa as the first state in the country to host the primary. These guys are nuts, and that's why we're well positioned to win not only this cycle, but in 2028.
And that is exactly why they're having so much funding issues right now in the Democrat National Committee. I told you yesterday, and I've been running a commentary today, they are $2 million in debt, so they put their headquarters building up for collateral as a loan so they can get another $2 million. And they're telling vendors, don't send us any bills right now. Wait until after the election. Then you'll be paid. Oh, yeah, then you'll be paid. As I mentioned in the commentary today, you'd have to be believing in the tooth fairy. And broadcast operations, if you're going to run a commercial as a political candidate or PAC group, money up front. Because if you let them walk away and say, we'll pay you after the election, they lose the election, they're not going to be found. Broadcast operations don't believe in the tooth fairy either. But again, it's not just Democrats. We have Republicans that are not helping. Ohio Governor DeWine, he is suggesting the president's order to end temporary protected status against 30,000 Haitians in his state. He said, Haiti is hell. You'll be sending people back to hell. You don't need to be deporting them. And we talked about earlier, maybe we need to find some way around this, but when you speak out against the president on basically trying to protect our nation, they came here on a temporary status. They've been here for decades. So we could send them to a third country. And we've talked about doing that as well. In the meantime, Democrats will use these illegals as they can to try to get into our elections. And voter integrity still is valuable. But here's another case where New Jersey governor is fighting against releasing details of possible illegals on their existing voter rolls.
The Trump administration is seeking, I believe by today, the list of non-citizens who are registered to vote and the approximately 400 that did vote. To what extent will your administration comply with the Trump administration's request in that regard?
As I have said, I am not in the habit of turning over private identifying information of the citizens of New Jersey. This federal government is weaponizing the government against individuals that disagree with them.
No.
They weaponized my private data against me in my election, and so I am working to protect people and their private data here in New Jersey.
Right. Now, she's already admitted that they had 6,000 illegals on their voter rolls, and at least 400 had voted recently. So they don't want to release the names, and they are protecting their identity. Well, how do you know who they are? Because you don't have a photo ID law in place, do you? And they're using the same verbiage that was created when it was true the government was weaponized against Trump MAGA supporters and many of you listening. That was weaponization. And you've got all these oddballs coming out of the woodwork that are supposedly inside the Democrat Party, like a man who does not believe in religion or Christianity for sure in Texas, James Tallarico.
I know personally that I've learned as much about my faith from Salman's tradition, from the Islamic mystics, from poets like Rumi, as much as I have from Christian authors and Christian writers.
You really learn more about your faith from Islamic mystics than you didn't learn about Christianity. And by the way, did you read the Old Testament? Did you learn anything from the Jewish leaders? These are the kind of the people they're putting up. And keep in mind, Mondami has made it very clear that he's aligned with a lot of these Islamic jihadists. He praises them. And that's why members who lost loved ones at 9/11 do not want Mondami on the 9/11 memorial event. And Mondami was questioned about that.
A number of people who are survivors of 9/11 are calling on you not to go to 9/11 memorial services. I wonder how you feel about the fact that they're trying to keep you away.
I will proudly honor the families, the survivors, the first responders forever impacted by that horrific terror attack by standing alongside them at this year's 9/11 commemoration, reaffirming that we will never forget the solemn day felt by all of us who call this city home and, frankly, by all of us who call this country home.
Yeah, and then you'll turn around and embrace radical Muslims, jihadists. I want to remind you, not every Muslim is a jihadist, but every jihadist is a Muslim. And Mondami has no issue with embracing them. But at the same time says, I want to stand alongside survivors of the most horrific terrorist attack to hit our nation, the world. You're looking for common sense? You're not going to find it there. I will tell you where you can find it, and that was what previous COTUS Justice Scalia had to say regarding the Bill of Rights. This will be very interesting, and you will learn. This is part of your education today. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
If you think that a Bill of Rights is what sets us apart, you're crazy. Every banana republic in the world has a Bill of Rights. Every president for life has a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights of the former evil empire, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, was much better than ours. I mean it literally. It was much better. We guarantee freedom of speech and of the press. Big deal. They guaranteed freedom of the speech, of the press, of street demonstrations and protests, and anyone who is caught trying to suppress criticism of the government will be called to account. Whoa, that is wonderful stuff. Of course, just words on paper. What our framers would have called a parchment guarantee. And the reason is that the real constitution of the Soviet Union, you think of the word constitution, it doesn't mean a bill, it means structure. Say a person has a sound constitution, has a sound structure. The real constitution of the Soviet Union, which is what our framers debated that whole summer in Philadelphia in 1787. They didn't talk about the Bill of Rights. That was an afterthought, wasn't it? That constitution of the Soviet Union did not prevent the centralization of power in one person or in one party. And when that happens, the game is over. The Bill of Rights is just what our framers would call a parchment guarantee.
Just a piece of paper, if you don't have the backing to go with it. Those are the words of now departed Justice Antonin Scalia, American jurist serving on the U.S. Supreme Court until his death in 2016. Passed away while on a trip in Texas. But that statement came from October 5, 2011, as he was speaking about the Bill of Rights, noting that every tin-horn dictator, as you heard him say, and the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union at that point, had written a Bill of Rights on paper. On paper. What does that mean? It's just as simple as taking your Bill of Rights. That's it. There goes your Bill of Rights. If you don't have something to back it up. Scalia, often described as an intellectual anchor for the originalist and textualist position in the court's conservative wing. Some have said he is perhaps the most influential jurist of the 20th century. I would tend to agree. He was certainly one of the most important justices in the history of the Supreme Court. And again, serving as an associate justice from 1986 until his death in 2016. He had also served prior to becoming that as a teacher. He graduated Harvard Law School, became a law professor at the University of Virginia, later served in the Nixon and Ford administrations, became an attorney general under President Gerald Ford, spent most of the Carter years teaching at the University of Chicago, becoming one of the first faculty advisors of the Federalist Society. It was 1982 that President Ronald Reagan nominated Scalia as judge of the U.S. Circuit Court District Columbia Circuit. 4 years later, Reagan appointed him to the U.S. Supreme Court, becoming the first, and I know Vic Purcelli will appreciate this, the first Italian-American. What forget about it? But he became the first Italian-American justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. But his position was deal with the Constitution. That is where we need to focus. Once again, the testimony of Justice Scalia.
So, the real key to the distinctiveness of America is the structure of our government. One part of it, of course, is the independence of the judiciary. But there's a lot more. There are very few countries in the world, for example, that have a bicameral legislature. Oh, England has a House of Lords for the time being, but the House of Lords has no substantial power. They can just make the Commons pass a bill a second time. France has a Senate, it's honorific. Italy has a Senate, it's honorific. Very few countries have two separate bodies in the legislature equally powerful. That's a lot of trouble, as you gentlemen doubtless know, to get the same language through two different bodies elected in a different fashion. Very few countries in the world have a separately elected chief executive. Sometimes I go to Europe to talk about separation of powers. And when I get there, I find that all I'm talking about is independence of the judiciary. Because the Europeans don't even try to divide the two political powers, the two political branches, the legislature and the chief executive. In all of the parliamentary countries, the chief executive is the creature of the legislature. There's never any disagreement between them and the prime minister, as there is sometimes between you and the president. When there's a disagreement, they just kick him out. They have a no confidence vote, a new election, and they get a prime minister who agrees with the legislature.
And that's pretty hard to understand at this end of our world, isn't it? You can't just kick out the president. You have to go through a process as set in our Constitution. And we have the checks and balances. The executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Scalia making it clear that all of them work together. And if you're looking at an issue where sometimes reference legislation, you can't get things to move forward between the parties that are in control of either and or both houses and or the White House, and you end up with gridlock. Well, Scalia says, don't look at that as necessarily being a disaster. Now, you've got to listen closely to understand the reasoning on this, because granted, if we have, like, say, the Election Integrity Act that's currently, quote, in gridlock in many ways, because we have too many wanting to fight against, quote, election integrity, because they don't want election integrity. They want the ability to mail in ballot after ballot after ballot with fake names, dead names. They don't really give a damn. They want to control the election. We, I say we, and that will include you, no doubt, want fair elections. It's like a sports tournament. When the buzzer sounds or the last inning is over, the last strike, that's the game. No, I want to go ahead and you can contest it, but the game is declared. And even if some technical issue came up later and they said it shouldn't have happened, it does not change that game. It's in the books. What we do in our nation is we fight and wrangle our way through these legislative hurdles. But within that, you might find gridlock. And the former Justice Scalia said, take some solace in gridlock.
I hear Americans saying this nowadays, and there's a lot of it going around. They talk about a dysfunctional government because there's disagreement, and the framers would have said, yes, that's exactly the way we set it up. We wanted this to be power, contradicting power, because the main ill that beset us, as Hamilton said in the Federalist, when he talked about a separate Senate, he said, yes, it seems inconvenient, but inasmuch as the main ill that besets us is an excess of legislation, it won't be so bad. This is 1787. He didn't know what an excess of legislation was. So unless Americans can appreciate that and learn to love the separation of powers, which means learning to love the gridlock, which the framers believed would be the main protection of minorities, the main protection. If a bill is about to pass that really comes down hard on some minority, they think it's terribly unfair. It doesn't take much to throw a monkey wrench into this complex system. So Americans should appreciate that, and they should learn to love the gridlock.
Justice Scalia, from testimony before this U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, October 5, 2011. He makes it very clear. And we've always acknowledged that. We might not always like the outcome we get from either the legislation or the U.S. Supreme Court. There are rulings I don't like. There are justices I thought would go one way and they've gone the other way, and I don't like it. But that is the law of our land. And you want confirmation on how effective Scalia was? The Senate debated his nomination just briefly and confirmed him 98-0. 98-0. One committee member in the Senate said, I regret I did not oppose Scalia because, quote, he was so effective. Because he was effective. Do you know who that was? Here's part of your education. The senator making that statement was Joe Biden. That's a badge of honor for Scalia. Coming up, we'll go back to the hearings today where Rand Paul and the rest of us watch Dr. Fake squiggle and worm and quote the Constitution and his right to the Fifth Amendment. But we also know what's yet to come.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
Walk down the door, just turn around now, 'cause you're not welcome anymore. Weren't you the one who tried to hurt me with goodbye? Did you think I'd crumble? Did you think I'd lay down and die? Oh, no, not I will survive.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government,
right,
and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're just trying to embarrass me. It's all personal. Now, I would say, with all due respect, Dr. Fauci, don't take it personal. But anytime somebody says, don't take it personal, oh, you should take it personal. And yeah, it is personal, because it involved our lives, disrupting our lives, our children, their health. Maybe some of your loved ones died during this confusion and mass weaponization of science by Dr. Fauci. And this hearing primarily is to get accountability. Now, remember, Joe Biden, possibly using the auto pen, gave Fauci a pardon for anything he did in the government up to the day that Joe Biden left office. Does that pardon still exist going forward? The general consensus is no, it doesn't. you do or say anything in front of this Senate hearing that opens you up for prosecution on any level, there is no pardon. And that's why he was taking the fifth. And I've got to caution you, as much as you might want to dismiss him taking the fifth, he's allowed to do so. And I want to remind you, by taking the fifth and not wanting to testify or answer questions, you cannot apply guilt against him. You can imply that he's guilty and got something to hide, but you can't apply that. You might want to, and we all think he did. And he's upset with some of his diary information being released, as we were reading some of it to you yesterday. I had dinner with Jake Tapper at my house. This is days after he'd told the American public, you should not have any little gatherings, even at your house. You might need to cancel Thanksgiving dinner. And he turns around and has Jake Tapper, the CNN anchor, at his house. And that was one of 2 times they did dinner at his house. And I never heard one word, not one, from Jake Tapper about going to Dr. Fauci's house during COVID for dinner. And I have yet to hear Jake Tapper and CNN respond to that point right now, and they should. They're going to try to look away, and they want you to look away. They'll be setting little brush fires here and there to try to distract you. They're already doing it. And so they go back to Trump and the Iran thing, claiming, and the gas prices. Don't forget that. I'm not saying they might not have some legitimate issues, but they refuse to look at where the real crack is in their facade. Senator Paul, of course, began the hearing today regarding Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, your testimony today is compelled by a lawful subpoena. As you know, it's a crime under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 to knowingly make a material false statement to Congress, with a penalty up to 5 years of imprisonment. Understanding that you are under oath, the American people would like to understand your reasoning, your rationale for why you chose to fund the research in Wuhan. What was the reasoning, and are you sorry, basically, for making the decision? Would you, given another chance, say, well, gosh, circumstances now, as I know it, maybe it wasn't a wise thing. Can you explain to the committee why you chose to fund this dangerous research in China?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
And he does have that right. Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 70 times in today's Senate hearing. And in some cases, it was almost laughable. You want an example? Well, let's go back to Senator Rand Paul regarding a question for Dr. Fauci.
In the red folder on your table is a copy of Section 192 of Title II of the U.S. Code. Your counsel has been provided a copy as well. That section makes it a crime for a witness appearing under subpoena to refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the question under inquiry. Do you have that in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right.
Because it might incriminate him? No, partly inside this guarantee of the Fifth Amendment is if you answer one question, you might be obliged to answer more. The Legal Information Institute says you can take the Fifth Amendment on certain questions, even if you did answer others, but you cannot pick and choose selectively within the same specific topic, or once you officially choose to testify in your own criminal trial, or any trial and hearing as we have here with the U.S. Senate. He wouldn't even admit there's a red folder in front of him. Oh, it got more circus-like as Missouri Senator Hawley pinned Dr. Fauci down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color is the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people.
And he's on point to an extent. Again, he was pardoned for everything he did in his official duties up to the date that Joe Biden signed the pardon, or the auto pen did. Anything he committed then, even if it's brought up and proven now, cannot be held against him. But if he says anything in front of the Senate committee hearing that either shows a lie or that he never gave the full information, we have a new game entirely. I'll get into that in more detail, but let me share something else with you. Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno was grilling Fauci. He said, will you at least apologize to the business owners that lost their business? We apologize to the moms who had to force their infant children, 2 and 3, 4-year-olds, to put masks on. We apologize to family members of the people who died because they did take your advice. And again, Dr. Fauci, I take the Fifth Amendment. And Senator Moreno, Ohio Congressman, Republican, said, who the F do you think you are? It's a total disgrace what you did to this country. I will add an amen to that. Now, regarding what he did do, does that mean he's just free and there'll be nothing else that can be done? Herein lies a quandary, and Senator Rand Paul laid out the beginning and the opening of the door.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the existence of the pardon. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today.
And by that, I'm reading from the Politico. Here's a way they take that case and run with it. Basically, Senator Paul is calling for a vote next week to indict Fauci on contempt of Congress. Rand Paul says you can expect consequences because you're exercising your Fifth Amendment, because you're obstructing an investigation of Congress. Politico and its writers point out that Fauci is in an unusual position. Biden did grant him a pardon for all of his official conduct up to 2025, meaning he cannot be subject to federal criminal prosecution. Republicans contend he cannot claim fear of prosecution because he has a pardon, so he should be able to answer the questions. The Senate could pursue criminal contempt, voting to turn the matter over to the Justice Department for potential prosecution. If you recall, 2 of the Trump aides, Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, were convicted of contempt misdemeanors because they refused to testify in the January 6th committees. They were taking the Fifth, or not even showing up. So there's a lot yet to be haggled out over this issue. It is not over. This is just the door opening. So Fauci might be out there lifting a glass of champagne with his lawyers. We got through it. Well, actually, one of his lawyers, his prime lawyer, who wanted to sit at the conference table with him during the hearing, Senator Rand Paul told him, you cannot sit there, sit with the other lawyers in a row behind him. And he refused to move, and he said, if you open your mouth again, you do not move, I will have you removed. Well, the lawyer decided, I can do it, and as soon as he opened his mouth, Senator Rand Paul instructed, remove him from the hearing. And they did. They kicked him out of the room. put him in a corner somewhere down the hall with a dunce cap on. Well, maybe not, but they should have. I did not have time yesterday to get into the words of praise that President Trump had for Senator Lindsey Graham.
Scripture tells us that blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life. For 71 years, Lindsey Graham was strong and steadfast. As a brother, a senator, a warrior, and a patriot, he withstood every last test, every single test that you can go through and every trial. And now he wears the crown of life in heaven, reunited with his parents and reunited with his Lord. I end by saying something very, very special. Lindsey, we love you. God bless you. We will always be with you, and you were very, very special.
Now, they did not always agree on every point. A lot of folks look at Lindsey Graham as a hawk regarding Iran war and Ukraine and trying to push Trump way over the line. Others were saying we need to hold Lindsey back. Don't let him have a full reign with the president. And speaking of the Iran war, I had mentioned in the first hour. Did you miss the first hour? Shame on you. But I know you can't listen all the time. Pull up the podcast. Go to LarryConnersUSA.com or NewsTalkSTL. But I pointed out that President Trump used some very striking, harsh, coarse Texas slang talk regarding Iran. Let me clarify this. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard conducted a surprise attack on U.S. forces based in the Middle East, trying to kill our men and women based in Jordan. So Trump is responding, saying, one, we successfully intercepted all of that, but now, even though we've been in very deep talks with Iran, he added, and I'm quoting him, we're going to beat the effing S out of them. This is right after they tried to kill members of our military based in Jordan. And they're trying to do it elsewhere on a constant basis. I saw again the other day a young woman who had entered our armed forces, volunteered. She happened to be at one of those bases hit by a prior attack. She makes a second female soldier killed, doing her job, not there because of DEI, but because of, one, her commitment to our country and her ability. And she was killed. So can Trump say we're going to beat the effing S out of them? I say, yes, sir. Make it happen. They're going to learn one way or the other. As always, I thank you for listening. I thank you for supporting our sponsors. Call and thank them for supporting Larry Connors USA and NewsTalkSTL, will you? We'll be back tomorrow night. And reminding you, of course, of our pledge. You should know it. You say it in our Pledge of Allegiance. One nation under God.